The abandoned warehouse loomed against the night sky, its broken windows like jagged teeth in a concrete skull. Sarah killed the headlights of her car a quarter-mile before the entrance, following Marcus's terse instructions. The rain had started, turning the dirt access road into a treacherous mud slick. "We shouldn't be here," she whispered, though there was no one but Marcus to hear her. This is where it all started. He checked his pistol, where he'd gotten it. She didn't want to know. Before tucking it into his waistband. Dad's last legitimate real estate purchase. Sarah gripped the steering wheel. "You still haven't told me what it is." Marcus's eyes never stopped scanning their surroundings. Money laundering, at first, then something worse. He pulled out a small flashlight. Dad was their financial wizard, made dirty money clean. But then he found out they were using his laundered funds for human trafficking. That's when he started gathering evidence. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. The gallery, their comfortable life, their beautiful home, all potentially built on human suffering. "I don't believe you," she said, but the protest sounded hollow even to her own ears. "You think I wanted to believe it?" Marcus's voice cracked. "My father, the hero I looked up to my entire life, complicit in something so evil, until he grew a conscience. Too late." They approached the warehouse on foot, keeping to the shadows. A padlock secured the side entrance, but Marcus produced a key from his pocket. "How did you?" "Found it in his golf bag, along with a note." The padlock clicked open. "The safe is inside, if we can find it." The warehouse interior was cavernous, empty except for a few rusted forklifts and abandoned crates, their flashlight beams cut through dust motes and darkness. "There." Marcus pointed to a small office in the corner, its windows filmed with grime. The office door was ajar. Inside, an overturned desk and scattered papers suggested someone had searched it recently. "No," Marcus whispered, dropping to his knees, frantically pawing through papers. "No, no, no. It was supposed to be here." A car engine rumbled outside. Headlights swept across the warehouse windows. "Kill the lights," Sarah hissed, dousing her flashlight. Marcus followed suit. Footsteps crunched on gravel, multiple sets. Male voices. Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm. "We need to leave. Now." Not without the evidence. He was stubborn, just like his father. The warehouse door creaked open. A beam of light swept inside. "I know you're in here, Lawson," a man's voice called. "Michael's boy. We've been tracking your phone." Marcus's face went pale. He pulled out his phone. "Dead." "It's not mine they're tracking," he whispered, looking pointedly at Sarah's pocket, where her phone glowed with an incoming call. The caller ID read, "Michael." Her dead husband was calling her. Sarah's blood turned to ice. Marcus grabbed the phone and smashed it against the concrete floor. "Back door," he whispered, pulling her toward a rusted fire exit as footsteps approached the office. They burst into the rainy night, running blindly toward the tree line as a shout rang out behind them. A gunshot cracked the darkness. Sarah felt Marcus stumble against her, his grip on her wrist suddenly slack. "Run," he gasped, blood blossoming on his jacket. "Don't trust anyone." Sarah's hands trembled as she flipped through the journal's weathered pages. The handwriting was distinctly Marcus's, jagged and hurried, as though each entry had been written in a state of growing paranoia. Between coordinates and cryptic references were newspaper clippings about her husband Michael's accident, with certain details circled in red ink. Brake lines, steep curve, no skid marks. She moved to the window, peering through the blinds at the quiet suburban street below. It was nearly midnight, and Marcus still wasn't home. The house felt different now, as though the walls themselves were keeping secrets. She returned to the journal, finding a page where Marcus had created a timeline of his father's activities in the months before his death. Late-night phone calls, unexplained business trips, large cash withdrawals. A photo fell from between the pages. Michael standing beside a black sedan with a license plate partially visible. The image was grainy, clearly taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. On the back, Marcus had written, "Dad meeting with him again. Third time this month." Sarah sank onto the attic floor, dust motes dancing in the beam of her flashlight. The man she'd been married to for 7 years suddenly felt like a stranger. Michael had been a successful investment consultant, respected, admired, seemingly transparent about everything in his life. Or so she thought. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Where's the journal, Sarah?" Her heart hammered against her ribs. No one knew she'd found it. No one except. Footsteps creaked on the stairs below. Heavy, deliberate. Not Marcus's usual impatient stride. She quickly photographed several pages with her phone, then slid the journal back beneath the floorboard. The attic door was across the room. There was no way to reach it without being seen. She extinguished her flashlight and pressed herself against the wall behind a stack of old furniture. The attic door swung open. A beam of light swept across the room. "I know you're up here, Sarah." Marcus's voice was unnervingly calm. "I got an alert when someone accessed the attic. I have cameras everywhere now." She stepped out, trying to project a confidence she didn't feel. "I was just storing some things." In the harsh light of his flashlight, she could see how much he'd changed. The boyish softness was gone from his face, replaced by hollow cheeks and dark circles under eyes that seemed perpetually vigilant. "Did you read it?" he asked. "Read what?" His laugh was bitter. "You're not a good liar, Sarah. Never have been." He crossed to the loose floorboard, retrieving the journal with practiced ease. "How much do you know?" "Enough to know you think your father's death wasn't an accident." Marcus studied her face, seeming to weigh something in his mind. Finally, he said, "It wasn't just Dad who's in danger. They're watching this house. Watching you." He pulled out his phone, showing her a series of photos. Her at the grocery store, at her gallery, walking to her car, all taken without her knowledge. "Who's watching me?" she whispered. "The same people who killed Dad." He tucked the journal into his jacket. "And now that you've found this, they'll assume you know everything." He held out his hand. "We need to leave. Tonight." Sarah stared at his outstretched hand, the implications crushing over her. Whatever she decided in this moment would change everything. "How do I know I can trust you?" she asked. "You don't," Marcus answered grimly. "But right now, I'm the only one who knows what we're up against." The Pentagon's underground conference room hummed with tension. 6 months of witness interviews, evidence compilation, and strategic planning had led to this moment. Sarah twisted her wedding ring, the key that had unlocked everything. The microscopic data chip embedded in the diamond setting had contained encrypted files documenting years of operations, corrupt agents, offshore accounts, and most damning of all, video evidence of Victor Kazarian's direct involvement in 3 murders. "They're ready for you, Mrs. Lawson." A young aide appeared at her elbow. Sarah smoothed her charcoal blazer and squared her shoulders. The immunity deal had been hard-won, protection for herself, Marcus, and Avi in exchange for their testimony. Eleanor Voss had ultimately proven valuable as well. Turning state's evidence after discovering her handlers had been playing her for years, feeding her false information about Michael's supposed betrayal. The courtroom was sealed, only High Kieran's personnel admitted. Sarah walked past the prosecution table when Marcus sat with federal attorneys, his arm still in a lightweight brace. He gave her a subtle nod, so different from the hostile teenager who had once pinned her against an attic wall. Behind him sat Ava, her FBI Academy uniform crisp, her bearing military straight despite the emotional weight of testifying against the agency that had raised her. Victor Kazarian watched Sarah with reptilian stillness from the defense table. The man responsible for Michael's death, for the destruction of her home, for the nightmares that still jolted her awake most nights. She held his gaze without flinching as she took the oath. The prosecutor approached. "Mrs. Lawson, please tell the court how you discovered the evidence contained in your husband's wedding gift to you." Sarah's mind flashed to that moment in the safe house. Marcus appearing without warning, the wedding album in his hands. It was never about the photos, he had explained, carefully prying apart the platinum ring setting. "Dad told me if anything happened to him, the truth was in the first gift he ever gave you." Now her testimony flowed with calm precision, describing Michael's elaborate contingency plan, how he created a failsafe that would only activate if both she and Marcus worked together, neither of them knowing the full picture until they combined their pieces of the puzzle. When she finished, the courtroom remained silent until the judge called a recess. As security personnel let her out, Victor Kazarian spoke just loudly enough for her to hear. "This isn't over, Mrs. Lawson." In the hallway, Marcus and Ava waited. Without words, the three of them moved toward the secure exit, where armored vehicles would transport them back to the safe house. Their home for the past 6 months, and likely for many more to come. "He threatened you, didn't he?" Marcus asked quietly. Sarah nodded. "It doesn't matter now." "It matters to us," Ava said fiercely, her hand moving instinctively to where her service weapon would normally be holstered. Sarah studied these two young people, neither one technically her child, yet somehow now her family. Forged not through blood or marriage vows, but through survival, through truth, through the painful dismantling of beautiful lies. As they stepped into the harsh sunlight, flanked by federal marshals, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced since finding Marcus's journal in the attic, a fragile sense of peace. Whatever came next. Witness protection, new identities, rebuilding their lives far from everything they'd known. They would face it together. "He was right, you know," she said as they slid into the waiting SUV. "Who was?" Marcus asked. "Your father, his last message." Sarah watched Washington, D.C. recede behind bulletproof glass. The truth really did set us free. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Sarah paced the sterile hospital corridor. Marcus had been in surgery for 3 hours. The bullet had missed his vital organs but shattered his collarbone. The police officers stationed outside his room were a stark reminder that they weren't safe. They were suspects. "Mrs. Lawson." A woman in a charcoal pantsuit approached, flashing a badge. "Special Agent Eleanor Voss, FBI. I need to ask you some questions about last night." Sarah's mind raced. FBI, not local police. This was escalating faster than she could process. "My stepson was shot. I have nothing to say without a lawyer. I'm not here about the shooting." Agent Voss glanced at the officers, then lowered her voice. "I'm here about Michael." Something in the way she said his name, intimately, with a hint of bitterness, made Sarah's instincts flare. "You knew my husband. Better than you think." Voss gestured toward a private waiting room. "We should talk inside." The moment the door closed, Voss's professional demeanor shifted. She pulled a flash drive from her pocket. "Michael gave me this the day before he died. Said if anything happened to him, I should wait exactly 2 years, then make contact with you and Marcus." "Why wait 2 years?" "He said you'd figure it out by then." Voss's smile was tight. Seems he was right. Sarah studied the woman's face, searching for signs of deception. "You were his handler, his partner, in every sense." Voss held her gaze unflinchingly. "Michael was deep undercover for 6 years. The investment firm was his legitimate cover. The money laundering operation was sanctioned, a way to infiltrate the Kazarian crime family." The room seemed to tilt beneath Sarah's feet. "You're saying our marriage was not part of the operation?" Voss cut her off. "That's why it all went wrong. He fell in love with you, started building a real life, lost his edge." Sarah felt sick. "And I'm supposed to believe you?" Agent Voss pulled out her phone, bringing up a photo of herself in tactical gear beside Michael, both younger, both smiling against a desert backdrop. "Kandahar, 2008, before he became Michael Lawson, before he met you." Before Sarah could respond, the door burst open. 3 agents with weapons drawn stormed in. "Eleanor Voss, you're under arrest for the murder of Michael Lawson and obstruction of justice." Voss's hand moved toward her weapon, but froze when a teenage girl stepped into the doorway. Agent Ava, barely 18 but wearing a tactical vest and aiming her weapon with unwavering precision. "Don't, Mom," she said quietly. "It's over." Voss's expression crumbled. "Ava, you don't understand." "I understand you killed my father." Tears streamed down Ava's face, but her aim never wavered. "The ballistics from Dad's car match your service weapon." Sarah struggled to process this revelation. "Your father?" "Michael was my biological father." Ava confirmed, eyes never leaving Voss. Something this woman kept from me my entire life while using me as leverage to keep him in line. Voss lunged suddenly, not for her weapon but for Sarah, grabbing her as a human shield and pressing a concealed blade to her throat. Nobody moves or stepmommy joins Michael. Voss hissed, backing toward the exit. Ava, toss me your weapon. Now. Sarah locked eyes with the teenage girl, her husband's daughter, and saw in them a silent, desperate plea for forgiveness. Sarah woke to the rhythmic beeping of medical equipment. Her throat burned where Voss's blade had broken skin before the tactical team subdued her. The safe house they'd brought her to was sparse but secure, a nondescript apartment with reinforced doors and windows that didn't open. 3 days had passed since the hospital confrontation. 3 days of debriefings, signed statements, and mounting anxiety about Marcus, who remained under guard in a separate location. They'd allowed one brief video call where he looked pale but determined, his left arm immobilized in a complex sling. Mrs. Lawson, the lead agent, Donovan, knocked before entering. There's something you need to see. He placed a laptop on the coffee table, queuing up security footage from what appeared to be her art gallery. This was taken 2 nights ago. The timestamp showed 2:17 am. The gallery was dark until a figure in black slipped through the back entrance using a key, her key, which had disappeared from her purse during the warehouse chaos. The intruder moved with practiced efficiency, heading straight for her office and the massive abstract painting that concealed her wall safe. That's not possible, Sarah whispered. Nobody knows the combination except. The intruder turned, face briefly illuminated by the glow of a phone screen. It was Marcus. Your Stepson accessed your safe at 2:19 am, removed something, and left within 3 minutes. Donovan paused the footage. The question is, what was he looking for? Sarah's mind raced. The safe contained nothing but insurance papers, her passport, and my wedding album, she realized. Michael insisted I keep it there instead of on a bookshelf, said it was too precious to risk in a fire. Donovan's expression hardened. We need that album. Why? Because your husband was a meticulous planner, because Eleanor Voss is refusing to talk, because whatever evidence Michael compiled against both the Kazarian family and corrupt agents within the Bureau, he would have ensured survived him. A knock at the door interrupted them. Another agent entered with a file folder. Forensics report on the Lawson residence fire, sir. Sarah's blood ran cold. What fire? Donovan shot his colleague a warning look, but it was too late. Your house was torched last night. Professional job, made to look like an electrical fault. His tone was clinical, but his eyes held something like sympathy. Nothing salvageable. The walls seemed to close in. Her home, her art, her photographs. Everything that validated her existence before this nightmare, erased. I need air, she gasped, pushing past them toward the balcony door. Forgetting momentarily it was sealed shut, she slammed her palm against the unyielding glass. Let me out. Sarah. Donovan's voice was gentle now. There's more. We've been monitoring the chatter. There's a bounty on you. 2 million. Why me? I don't know anything. They think you do, or they think you have something. He showed her a grainy surveillance photo taken outside her hospital room. This man, Victor Kazarian, doesn't make personal appearances unless it's critically important. She studied the image of a distinguished older man with cold eyes. I've never seen him before, but Michael did. He was gathering evidence against Victor's human trafficking operation when he was killed. Donovan hesitated. And there's one more thing. The blacklight scan of your hospital room after Voss was apprehended. He showed her a photograph of the wall above her bed, invisible ink revealed by forensic lighting. SL2341NK. The key is the ring. In Michael's handwriting.